Welcome to Tarrant County Five Stones Task Force. I know a lot of you are still getting food. Please, if you haven't gotten food, feel free to get in line. We've got a good meal today. I want to say thank you to Catering to Love for providing the meal. Also, if you're new to the meeting, please take a moment, scan our QR code. This just gives us a chance to know that you were here, and it puts you on our, or gives you a chance to get added to our email list so that you can get upcoming reminders of meetings and announcements that we have. This QR code is also at the registration desk if you need it. Our spotlight agency this month is Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, and I will have them come up and talk a little bit about their mission.
Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, whichever way you would like to look at it. But we appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about the Sheriff's Office and our response to human trafficking within our community. Just to give some historical context, it really wasn't until 2017 when Sheriff Wayburn took office that he really understood the complexity of these crimes and how they were impacting our community. And he wanted to create a specialized unit to address those. So in 2017, the Human Trafficking and Child Exploitation Unit was formed. It was primarily focusing on human trafficking related offenses, but as well as internet facilitated crimes against children. Since that time, we have expanded somewhat. The unit is currently comprised of myself, Commander Kevin Turner, for those that don't know me. Sergeant Chris Jarvis, who supervises the unit. I often refer to myself as the assistant supervisor, or if any office fans, I'm the assistant to the regional manager out there. And then we have 4 detectives or investigators that are assigned to the unit. And these individuals do an amazing job of understanding what true collaboration looks like and what it looks like to address this through a trauma-informed, victim-centered approach. One of those investigators are present today, Investigator Crystal Hayward back there at the back. If you want to stand up, Crystal. She does an amazing job, and we're so blessed to have her as part of our unit. The 3 other investigators couldn't make it today, but they also are very much committed to engaging in this collaborative effort here. So what this is really for us is that we are also involved in several other initiatives here in Tarrant County. One is the Five Stones Task Force. We have been a member since 2017. And when the unit was formed and we had the opportunity to meet with Felicia and Fort Worth PD and talk about what true collaboration looked like when addressing human trafficking in Tarrant County, we knew this was something we wanted to be a part of. So Felicia, thank you so much. Back then, when we were just getting started, really didn't know a lot, but really bringing us in and helping us along. So thank you so much, Felicia. I'll give you a hand for that. Thank you so much. But we're also part of several other initiatives. One is the North Texas Trafficking Task Force. This is the HSI-led initiative that primarily focuses all of North Texas, which you can imagine that's Dallas and Tarrant County and the surrounding counties. So approximately 13 counties total with an estimated population of 8 million people. That unit is relatively small, so you can imagine they have a lot of heavy caseload. One of our investigators is actually assigned as a task force officer to that initiative, so we're proud about that. Another initiative we're part of is the North Texas Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. This is one of 3 task forces that exist across Texas that are focusing on internet facilitated crimes against children. We're extremely proud that investigator Letitia Connell, that I think y'all had the opportunity to meet in June, is part of that task force, and she does an amazing job representing the Sheriff's Office there. But lastly, and one of the most important ones that I want to talk about is the Tarrant County Human Trafficking Task Force. This task force is something that we're extremely proud to be a partner on. There are several organizations, both governmental and non-governmental, a part of this amazing task force. And it really is a strong collaborative effort of those individual organizations coming together through a victim-centered trauma-informed lens and addressing human trafficking in our community. And it really is focused on three key initiatives. One is to enhance our ability to identify and recover victims of all forms of human trafficking. That's both sex and labor, adult and children. Two, to investigate and prosecute human traffickers, and those that exploit trafficking victims. We have great representation from Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney's Office here today that does an amazing job prosecuting these cases. And we're so proud that they're a part of the task force. But lastly, and most important, is that key of having services available to those victims that help them in their stabilization and restoration. And we are so proud to walk alongside all of the victim service providers, direct service providers that are part of the task force, and partner with them on this initiative. And I cannot imagine trying to do this without them. So I'm so thankful for their commitment to this task force. The task force is really broke down into four key categories, or I say committees. One is our core team. It consists of leadership from the Sheriff's Office, Unbound Now, the NET, Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, HSI, and a survivor leader. And we are so blessed to have strong survivor leaders that are a part of this task force to give that survivor-led voice and really help guide us in our mission. We had three subcommittees that are part of the task force. One is the Law Enforcement and Prosecution Subcommittee. That is co-chaired by Danielle Bonanno, who with the Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney's Office, and Sergeant Tariq Slomovic. They are co-chaired for that task or that subcommittee. And they do an amazing job bringing all of law enforcement and prosecutors' offices together and talk about collaboration, talk about investigation, talk about strategies that we are seeing being effective in identifying and recovering victims, but also building out those strong cases with the district attorney's office to make sure that these individuals are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So that task force also, or that subcommittee also focuses on coordinating proactive investigations or proactive operations that we run during the entire month. So we're excited about that particular subcommittee and what they are bringing to the task force. Another one is our victim service provider subcommittee. That again is those key victim service providers and direct service providers coming together to ensure that the comprehensive services are available to those victims. They also make sure that there's a strong referral network in place, so when a victim does come forward and seek those services, they can be connected in their appropriate manner. And lastly, our outreach and training subcommittee. We have an amazing individual that chairs that subcommittee, Paula Chavez. She's sitting right back there. If you want to stand up, yeah, wave like that. She does an amazing job of going out and really seeing what our task force partners need as far as training is concerned, but more importantly, empowering our community through education and awareness. And she does an amazing job. And for those that are interested, there is a roundtable coming up in September that's going to be held in Arlington, where we're going to be talking about human trafficking, but how it also is going to intersect with FIFA as it's coming on board. So we're excited again for the Sheriff's Office to be part of this strong collaborative effort here in Tarrant County to address human trafficking, combat human trafficking. And I will say, as being able to serve as the task force coordinator for the Tarrant County Human Trafficking Task Force, I also get the opportunity to speak to other task forces across the country. And what we have in Tarrant County is so unique, and we are doing it right. We are doing it strong, and it really shows what true collaboration, trust, and respect amongst our partners looks like. So thank you all for your partnership, and we will continue on.
All right, it's that time of year. The time to start nominating people for our November awards. This is the chance to nominate those unseen heroes in the community, those leaders that you know of that don't get recognition. We've got 3 different categories: our law enforcement excellence, survivor advocacy, and community impact. So take a moment. On your agenda, there is a QR code in the upper right-hand corner where you can scan that, put in a nomination for somebody, take a moment and nominate somebody for an award. This is a chance to recognize somebody that you know. We also are supporting the 2026 FIFA FIFA games, and we want to help them with their volunteer requests. So there's a list of different requirements that you need. If you want more information about this, feel free to email me. I can get you a copy of the QR code. There is a code that you can put in, which lets them know that you are coming from this part of Tarrant County. We're not going to do agency announcements this month just because we're short on time, but if you do have an announcement, we can put it in the after action email. Feel free to email me and I will put it in the email for you. Just as a note, this month we are talking about the intersection of pornography and trafficking, so it is going to be a little more graphic than usual. But we do have listeners available if this topic does impact you in some way. So at any point, if you feel that you need to talk to somebody, don't worry about whether it's for you or whether it's for somebody you know. If you want to talk to somebody, just feel free to step outside and we will have somebody meet you and feel free to talk with you. Also, at the bottom of your agenda, there is a QR code with resources available. It has prevention ideas, how it's affecting youth, as well as counseling options for those struggling with online adult content. And now we will go into our law enforcement updates. We will hear from Fort Worth PD and Detective Arand.
Good morning. We've had a really busy month this month. We had a total of 11 cases that came in, 110. And we also assisted Vice with, we went to 3 massage parlors, illicit massage parlors that they're in the process of being closed by the state. One of them has been closed. The other 2, we're still working on those. So we're kind of moving in that realm to help with that as well. And the case, like I said, we had 11 cases that came in, but I really want to highlight 2 of them. One of them, we had a person, she made an outcry. She called patrol, made an outcry of being trafficked by her boyfriend. So we brought her in, I talked to her, had Unbound come in to talk to her. And we were there for quite a while with her. Unbound was able to set up to get her sent to a safe place. And we, Unbound set it up. They called the Uber to come pick her up. And he was going to transport her to a location where the safe place was going to come and pick her up. And he called Hannah and said, hey, on our way there, she wanted me to pull over and let her out of the car, close to Lancaster where the call had come from. And so he did because, you know, he had to. So we haven't been able, she hasn't called us back. We haven't had another call with her yet. But I was talking to someone about it and they made the comment that, oh, well, I guess if she calls again, y'all aren't going to help her. She's kind of already, you know, burnt that bridge. And I was like, no, that's not how it works. I was like, she will call again and we will go out there and we will bring her in and talk to her and we'll do the exact same thing. And we'll get her the help that she needs where she's at. But just because she didn't accept it this time doesn't mean she won't accept it next time. And so that was a little difficult because she just had a lot of emotions going on that day. There was just a lot going on. And, but, you know, hopefully next time, maybe she'll make it a little further the next time. But, so that was kind of, it was really difficult. The second one, it's a little funny, but so we had, female, she called police that she was flown here by a friend. She's from Louisiana. A friend of hers called her and said, hey, you can come here to Fort Worth and make a ton of money. And so he bought her a ticket, flew her here, Ubered her to a hotel. And so she said, why am I at a hotel? Oh, because my roommate is there with his girlfriend. I didn't want to, having inconvenienced. Well, then he started talking to her about, hey, I'm going to put you on this dating website. It's called Mega Personal, and started going into all this information. Well, she called the police and they got to the door and she's like, hold on, closes the door, comes back, has her purse in her bag in her hand. And she's like, you need to take me somewhere safe because this isn't a safe place. So I know, right? So I just thought she knew enough to call and say like, okay, this is not where I thought this was going to go, and was able to call, and we were able to get her to a safe location and she went back home. But it's some of these cases can get to you, and it's August has been a hard month, but I just say that, but they're going to call and we're going to be there, and we'll just take it day by day and meet them where they are. And so we just have a lot going on in our unit this month. And oh, also one more thing, forgot. So along with that, we also got some great training this month. ADA Bonanno put on an excellent training with Krista Lieberg Melton, who's the founder of the CEO Institute to Combat Trafficking. From 2015 to 2019, she served as the Department of Criminal Chief of the Human Trafficking and Transnational Organization Crime Section of the Office of the Texas Attorney General. From 2000 to 2014, she prosecuted traffickers and rapists in San Antonio, and it was an amazing training that she put. It was very eye-opening. It was great. And then we also had training with Arlington PD with their heat unit at the beginning of the month. And then along with Unbound, our unit gave a presentation to our cops group on the west side. So it was a busy month of learning and discovering and just being involved with the community, which had a lot going on in August. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Tarrant County Sheriff's Office and Investigator Hayward.
Good morning. I'm Investigator Crystal Hayward with the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. Let's see here. This month, we partnered up with Wise County Sheriff's Office with doing their first ever demand reduction operation. Out of that operation, we were able to get 18 arrests for a total of 2 days. 15 of those arrests were for solicitation or prostitution, and the other 3 were for involving solicitation of a minor. In August, our team also received 6 trafficking related tips. Not all those tips related for trafficking charges, but they did uncover some type of criminal offenses. So warrants will be issued to those subjects. Most importantly, 1 case is moving forward with 2 suspects facing aggravated sexual assault of child charges, with additional charges possible as an investigation continues. That's all we have right now. We're still getting more tips in as the day goes on. Like I said, they're not all trafficking related, but we are working them through to see what we can uncover. Thank you.
All right. At this point in time, I would be reading the bio for our main presentation speaker, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to have her come up and speak. I'll let her introduce herself, but she is an amazing speaker, and this is going to be an amazing topic. So please give her your undivided attention. Carrie Grace with Carrie Grace Consulting. All right. Almost had a tragedy off the bat here. Okay, so this is a heavy topic, right? We're just gonna dive into something that none of us really want to address, you know, sitting around the dinner table with our families every evening. Because we're really looking into one of the root causes of why all of us sit in this room. I've worked alongside a lot of you for a long time, and we're truly about a mission of seeing those that have been in every way abused and exploited. We've seen the worst of what human beings can do to other human beings. We've been witnesses to a lot of trauma. And when the detective was sharing, you know, some of the stories this month have been hard. We all can testify to that, right? And we carry some of those with us. And they shape us. And yet, every single one of us in this room, every single one of us have also had to carry the effects of pornography in some way, shape, or form. Either we got exposed to it and it exploited our own innocence and created an appetite for something that we didn't even know about, right? Exposure used to be a magazine that somebody's uncle had in a shed or something, right? You know, it took a little bit more effort. Now, it's just at our fingertips at any moment. This is something that I hope today you will see is undeniably connected to why we have to do the work that we do. From the law enforcement to the advocacy to the churches, every single one of us are now in a battle. And I promise you, this is one of the reasons that we're here. And we don't want to talk about it because we want it to seem like it's innocent. We want to say, this isn't really hurting anybody, right? Because that's the script that allows us time after time to go back into that world. And I believe this is one of the single issues that has caused more decline to our society than anything else. And I don't say this as just an advocate who's been, you know, combating human trafficking for, I don't know, a long time now. I'm not saying it from just that perspective. I'm saying it from a person who's walked through this with close loved ones. I've seen what it can do to people's lives and to families, to marriages, to children. I've seen it up close and personal, and so have you. There's not one person in this room that has not experienced it personally or had to walk with someone you know through this particular issue. It has a stronghold and bondage attached to it that is unmatched in my experience. It's right up there with some of the hardcore drugs that we've seen people have to battle. So I want to share with you a personal story. We're going to start out with, I'm just going to be vulnerable with you and honest with you as to why I'm passionate about this. This is my dad. This is my father. And in 2015, I had to help put my father in prison. As you can see, former East Texan sentenced to 40 years without parole for child sexual assault. And this is the thing. You don't know that your story is about to be all over the news. They don't have to tell you ahead of time. You don't get a warning. You just wake up one morning with a lot of messages from people that say, I just saw your dad on the news. And then you go to these platforms and you see what people have to say about him. And there were a lot of creative ways that people had of putting my dad's life to an end, right? And
I helped put him in prison because that was the right thing to do. But he's still my dad. And he has a reason why he ended up the way that he ended up. He doesn't have an excuse. He has a reason. And I want us to, first of all, throw away our little judgment hats before we even dive into this, because it's really easy to judge those that are caught up in this and not have compassion for them. Believe me, I've had to see some horrific things that people have done to others. But at the end of the day, I still want my dad to be redeemed. I don't want this to be the end of his story. And I don't want the end of any trafficker or purchaser story or porn addict story to be just utter destruction. I'm hoping, that's why I'm here doing this work, that's why you're here, is that there's redemption for all of us. So let's go into this with gloves off, because this is one of those issues that every single one of us have to look at personally. We really do, because it's impacted every single one of us personally. So with my dad, unfortunately, his victims were very, very young. 2 years old, 4 years old. And in the, court documents, the 4-year-old in particular was being victimized by my dad twice a week for 10 years of her life, from age 4 to age 14, before finally law enforcement got involved. I reported it 20 years prior, nothing happened. He continued to have more victims. So this little girl had experienced being sexually assaulted 1,040 times. That's just one victim. That's just one story. There are countless stories. And this is happening all across our nation. Every single day, every single night. So to me, this has become the new normal, right? Pornography has its grip on our youth. It's targeted them. And it's getting younger and younger is what we're seeing. So now early exposure is 10 to 11. I've heard it as low as 7, but on average, 10 to 11 years old. Over 90% of boys and 60% of girls have seen pornography by the time they turn 18. Do you know that that is more likely than them to even graduate high school? Do you know that? 63%. The girls are still at 60%, but only 63% of 18-year-olds graduate from high school now. Do you know that only 55% of 18-year-olds have had their first kiss? But yet they've already been exposed to pornography. When we look at what pornography does to the brain, some of you have researched this, you've heard this, it may be information that you are familiar with. I hope that even in its familiarity, that today we can see it with eyes of compassion and take this information in a way that allows ourselves to be impacted, because we can get real numb to this, right? We can get real numb, but this is what's happening. So pornography is hijacking that mesolimbic dopamine system. Okay, so we all have a limbic system going on in our brain. This is what's being hijacked. And this is the same system that gets hijacked by cocaine. And each release, every time someone clicks, there's another release, and a surge of dopamine is now going to be released. And every time that happens, you're getting flooded with dopamine. And it's basically getting your sensitivity to get numb, right? So then what's going to happen? Well, now I got to have more novelty. I have to have more something variety, right? I have to keep changing it up. This is why we have so many varieties of things that we're now exposed to when it comes to pornography. And this means that just normal, ordinary relationships in life, they are just kind of dull. So what we were wired for, I want to always take it back to what we were wired for originally when we were created, was that this would allow us to actually have connection with other people, because we're all hardwired to be connected to other people. Nobody's supposed to be trying to do this by ourselves. We were made for connection and relationship. So this is the very need in us that is targeted so that it gets basically hijacked and counterfeited with something that is truly empty, right? Very consuming, but still empty in the experience of it. So then you have serotonin, right? This is the neurotransmitter that is tied to satisfaction, mood stability, all of that kind of stuff. But this gets messed up along the way, and it leaves us feeling restless, anxious, and prone to compulsive use. And a lot of us have been around people that you know that they have an addiction. You can see it in their body. They cannot sit still. Something's always moving. Something's always shaking. Like there's this anxiety that pulses through their body all the time because they're never truly able to just relax, right? They're in that hyperactive mode all the time. So the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for self-control, for impulse regulation and long-term decision-making, that gets weakened with repeated overstimulation. And then we're left with poor judgment and escalating behavior. It's really kind of a perfect storm, right? So then again, you develop tolerance, and now what was once stimulating no longer satisfies, and you have to seek something else that is increasingly extreme, violent, or taboo. This begins to shape our expectations and drives the demand. If you have not ever been through one of Ty, I'm just giving him a shout out now, Ty Bowden. If you've not been through one of his trainings, it is excellent. It is excellent when we look at how this is affecting a whole generation. His training is one of my favorites, and he really does a great job of helping us understand what types of demands are out there when it comes to pornography and prostitution, trafficking, all of that. Because now in my normal relationship, maybe I can't ask my partner for some of these things that I now have an appetite for. So I have to go look for it. I have to purchase it. That's what ends up happening. So we're no longer getting to have the human experience we were designed for. We now are having to pay for a counterfeit version of something we now have an appetite for. So what this teaches us is that violence, degradation, all of those things are what is supposed to be normal now, and women are just willing participants in this. So I just want to give you some stats for the numbers people in the room. Our population is 336 million. We have 40 million regular porn viewers. Regular. That is 11.9% of our population. 15.5% of our adult population are regularly viewing porn. That's 3 hours on average and 120 million combined hours. I want to see just a show of hands because this is fun. How many of you in here drive a truck instead of a car? Look at my proud truck drivers, okay? How many of you own a cat? Who are the cat people in the room? Okay, we got a few cat people in the room. Okay, so what we have now is we have 1 in 8. That's the statistic of not just those that are viewing porn, but 1 in 8 people who view porn are purchasing sex. 1 in 8. That's how many people are driving trucks. That's how many cat owners we have. And gym memberships. Anybody a gym membership person? There you go, okay? We have the same number of people purchasing sex as we have gym members. And they're probably, they're probably getting their fix more than we are, right, at the gym. So they're probably more committed. All right, so why does this matter? There was a study that analyzed 304 popular porn scenes. And they found that 88% contained physical aggression and 49% included verbal aggression, often degrading name calling, right? In the vast majority, we're talking 94%, Men were the aggressors and women were the targets. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail because what does that actually mean? It can seem very, out there unless we talk about it. Spanking. That is one of the forms of aggressive behavior that's portrayed in pornography. Gagging, which can leave us with long-term physical issues or death. Slapping. We have hair pulling and choking. I'm sorry, choking is the one that I meant to say would leave us with potentially long-term effects. And then name calling and insults, verbal aggression, in nearly half of the scenes with terms like, I won't say it because I was not going to cuss in this presentation, but you can read it. And slut, making 97% of the verbal abuse in these moments. So that is what the majority of pornography is showing us and teaching us. All right, there's the percentages. And please feel free to take pictures of any of these slides so that we can move through them, but you can get the content. So most targets are going to be women. And how do they respond when these things are happening? Okay, when they're being choked out or whatever, the response is going to either be pleasure or neutrality. And that is now the narrative that aggression equals arousal. And what I want to present to you is this thought. If we were to put these same things into domestic violence context, we would have a different outcome, wouldn't we, of these things occurring? It would not be viewed as entertainment, as pleasure, as arousal. It would be viewed as abuse that in a court of law here in the United States would get you into some trouble, okay? But do you see how we've normalized it in this context? All right, so this is a quote. I didn't come up with it myself, but pornography essentially is running a neuroscience experiment on an entire generation with no exit strategy. So let's talk about what is the connection between porn and trafficking. I love this question because people still want to push back on the fact that they're connected. No, there's no connection between the two. This is innocent. It's just fun. And it's just the thing that I'm doing behind closed doors. It doesn't affect anyone. It doesn't hurt anyone, right? Okay, well, it doesn't actually start on street corners. It starts with what someone is watching in private. That's where it actually is starting. When we look at from porn to purchase, okay, we're going to just follow this out and see what it reveals to us. This is how consumption fuels exploitation. First of all, porn use often leads to tolerance. So then we have to look for more extreme things. We're going to have to find more violent content. It just continues to take you down the rabbit hole, right? That's what it does. Then you have traffickers who's going to exploit this demand. They're like, perfect. Now we have more buyers, right? This is about money. It's about money for the trafficker. The average first exposure is, again, 10 to 11. So we are early on, we're trying to desensitize an entire generation. Again, 1 in 8 porn consumers has paid for sex. So that's a pretty big percentage of, if you're viewing it, you're going to purchase it. 1 in 8 will purchase. Men who view violent porn are more likely to become those sex buyers. Because again, to Ty's presentation that he does, the more that you seek out something like that, you're going to have to find someone that maybe you're not going to have to look at the next morning that you just did these things to. So sex trafficking thrives because of a demand, and porn normalizes and increases the demand. 27% of US adults have viewed porn in the past month. And 40 million are regularly consuming it. So when we look at just the last 2 years, from 2023 to 2024, thousands of sex trafficking cases were reported in the US with online enticement of minors surging by over 300%. This is the equivalent of your gallon of milk going from $3 to $12. Okay, or your gas going from, you know, 3 or whatever to all of a sudden now you at the gas pump, you're gonna have to pay $12 for that same gallon of gas. That's what 300% increase is like. That's the increase of online enticement of minors. Do you think that there's an agenda and a target on our kids? Do you think there is? This tells me absolutely that's what's going on. Why? Why? We have to ask that, number one, because there's a demand for it, right? Now we have to have the novelty, we have to have the extreme. So there is a demand for that type of content, and it's a lot easier to get a young, impressionable child than it is maybe somebody that's an adult that has a little bit more life experience. Easier to control. It's also a multifaceted tool for traffickers. All right. First of all, it can be used for recruitment and grooming. They use technology and social media as basically virtual catalogs. They are able to identify potential victims. What are they looking for? What are they scanning for? They're looking for their vulnerabilities. And they're going to figure out how to give them attention. Maybe they can give them some gifts or express some romantic interest. They're going to also move into sexting to try to introduce early on desensitizing and normalizing the sexual request. These are professionals, okay? They know what they're doing. And they're the ones talking to your children. All right, the agenda is targeted at them. When we talk about how they are using pornography as exploitation, they usually use pornography to help train their victims and show them the sexual acts that they are going to be expected to do in their exploitation. 52% of individuals in prostitution and 80% of sex trafficking survivors were shown pornography as part of their abuse. So pornography is being used to train more victims in what they're going to be expected to do. It's also used, pornography is a venue for exploitation. In 2021, pornography was the third most common venue for sex trafficking reported to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And nearly 1 in 5 cases, it was the primary venue. So what is the likelihood? If 1 in 5 pornography was the primary venue of them being trafficked, what is the likelihood of the porn that you may be looking at potentially having a victim? 1 in 5? So if you sit and you view pornography, I think the weekly stat was 3 hours, then how many victims have you potentially seen? And of course, they look like they're willing participants because that's what they're forced to do. They also use it for control. They're going to, again, create content that they can then use for sextortion against that victim. Now we're going to release these images, these videos of you, and they control them with that. And then there's the escalation. The porn-fueled desensitization can lead traffickers and buyers towards more extreme abuse, including the child sexual abuse material and acting out violent scenarios in real life. Okay, so let's talk about the common grooming tactics. Thank you. Common groom, she's giving me time, y'all, and I need that in my life because we have a lot to go through. Common grooming tactics. This is something that I had to walk through with my own child when my daughter was a teenager. She's here today, thank God, but we walked through this because guess what? She was targeted. Okay, she was 15 years old when she was targeted. And I want you to know how quickly this happens. This was a 2-week long conversation with someone online that she didn't know. 2 weeks. And guess what they were doing? Identifying and targeting her vulnerabilities, trying to figure out how can we get at her. Building trust and emotional dependency, which again is a lot easier with a younger person. Gradual desensitization and sexualization. It's just happening gradually. Oh, send me a picture. Oh, you're so beautiful, right? Oh, do you have put on a swimsuit for me. Just keep working across those boundaries quickly. They don't take a lot of time, and it's amazing what they're able to accomplish. Then they start creating isolation. Do you know what cued me into something wasn't right? She was just spending a little bit more time in her bedroom, a little bit more time alone. She had her phone more. And I was like, what is going on? This is different. Do you see how subtle that was? That's how subtle it was. Manipulation. They're going to get you to keep things quiet. Oh, don't tell them about us. Let's just get to know each other, right? And then establishing supremacy and coercion. There's always going to be a line where they now have some form of control. And luckily, thank God, something in my mama's system went off and all bells and whistles were screaming, and I knew something was not right. I had come home and my son, who was 11 at the time, she was supposed to be watching him. She's 15 and she wasn't at the house. I said, "Where's your sister?" And he was like, "She went for a walk." I was like, something's not right. And I knew it. Found my daughter in the neighborhood. She had given the address that she was at to the people she was talking to, and they were on their way to pick her up. That's how close it was for us. Okay. And she can tell you she was grounded from everything. Okay. She was grounded from life. Our joke was she was grounded from everything that plugged into the wall. Okay. That was her grounding specifically that came out of my mouth. And she was like, "What about my fan?" I was like, "And now you're grounded from that too." So, because she was just a smart aleck. Anyway, but, you know, as a mom, you got to do what you got to do. But I wanted you to see how subtle that was. Do you see? It's something you got to be in touch with and paying attention to. These are the specific grooming approaches. Y'all have heard of it. The lover boy method, the false promises and the blackmail, and then the influencer led grooming is a whole new thing because every young kid now wants to be an influencer. So they're capitalizing on that. Well, I can help you and let me get you connected and oh, and you want to be a model. You're so beautiful. Well, I happen to have a modeling agency. Okay. There's all of these ways that, again, how many of you have gotten some of those things that you're like, oh my gosh, they want to do that for me? And we may fall for it too. Okay. So of course a 15-year-old is going to fall for it. Let's talk about technology's role. Social media, gaming platforms, and messaging apps. They're all used for recruitment and grooming. Every single one of those. So again, if you're a parent and these are things that your kids have access to, guess who has access to them? Okay, it's the equivalent of, let me just put it to you this way. It's the equivalent of me dropping off since the average age of exposure is 10 to 11, my 10 to 11-year-old at the park for the day, unsupervised, in a neighborhood that has known sex offenders of children, and being like, "Bye, good luck, have a fun day at the park," with no supervision. Like, who would do that? But because we don't physically, tangibly see it, we minimize the threat that we're putting our kids in every single day because it's just not visible. It's like me with my inbox with 7,000 unread emails. Because I don't have 7,000 pieces of mail in my house, I can ignore it, right? It doesn't mean anything, it's not taking up space. But when this comes to our kids, we're literally putting them in that type of environment and hoping that they have the coping skills and the savvy to know what to do. And they don't. I will tell you, they do not. My daughter's pretty savvy, okay? And she didn't know. So again, we talked about the modeling pipeline. This is very common. Okay, I'm sorry, Kayla, you're just here, but you're getting used for all the examples. She was also approached. She had a legitimate job working at Buckle at the mall. and she gets approached at her legitimate job for another job. Okay, so they were working the mall that day and she was approached. Oh, you're so beautiful, right? Works every time. So again, when we look at the real tactics and impact here, 41% of US trafficking survivors in 2021 were first contacted through social media, posing as legitimate opportunities. 41%. There was a girls do porn case that is a good case study research for you to go check out. But these young women were lured with modeling ads, and they were reference girls that, oh yes, I've made all this money, and they were offering them $2,000 to $6,000 a shoot, and then they were coerced into pornography. They did not say yes to a lifetime of exploitation. They were groomed, they were lied to, and then they were discarded. That's the reality. No one came to them with that, hey, would you like to go and travel the world and have to meet with 20 clients a day and sell your body and never get any money out of it? Would you like to get diseases? Would you? No, that was not the offer that was presented. It looked way better than that. This is a survivor I've walked alongside for several years, a dear friend of mine, and this is her testimony. While in captivity, my traffickers would often video and webcam my sexual assaults in order to further exploit me, making a substantial financial gain by selling my rape online. To watch the terror and see the pain of another human and find a sick satisfaction is alarming. To watch it over and over and profit over and over is pure evil. Because of this trauma, to this very day, my blood runs cold when anyone says, you look familiar, or have we met? I would consider myself paranoid, but I've been filmed for so long that it's hard to trust in privacy. And it's not paranoia if you turn out to be correct. That's the reality. That's why after they come out of this life of being exploited, guess what? Their exploitation doesn't end when they have been videoed, when they have had this stuff sent out to, they can't get it back. It's out there. So their exploitation never ends. When we look at what's happening with OnlyFans, if you're not familiar with that, stay away, it's fine. But this is a platform that basically has turned into a pretty much predominantly porn site. And it is actively recruiting our young, our youth. It really is. They are making sure that they're putting ads into social media platforms. And this is where you are sold a lie that you can basically, you can be your own boss. You can make all kinds of money. You can, you know, you can live the dream at home, and all you got to do is get your little account set up. People are going to get subscriptions to you, and then you can create content and you're in control. It's very empowering. That's the package. Okay. That's not the reality of what's happening with OnlyFans. And then you are driven by the demand of these subscribers. When do you ever get time off? Because you got to meet that demand all the time. It is a whole different level of bondage. But this is what's coming after our youth. This is what they're dealing with, is now it's like celebrity status to have an OnlyFans account. Okay, so where are we going to go from here, right? First of all, identifying the root causes that make pornography a gateway to exploitation. First of all, is the accessibility and the perceived innocence. I think I've shown you that there is so much access that is given now. Our personal lives are out there for people to be able to look at and find vulnerabilities, especially with our youth. And again, there's this message of, oh, this isn't hurting anyone. It's okay. We're just using this for educational purposes. And now if you haven't viewed pornography, you feel like you don't know what to do when it comes to, you know, normal sexual relation. I better get taught. So I better watch porn so I know what I'm doing. Yeah, okay. Like this is what, and then you have a whole society that now thinks that that type of relating to another human being involves abuse. It involves violence. It involves being talked to with horrific language, that's what we think it is now. The breakdown of the family connection. You have got to look your kids in the eyeballs, and you have got to see them in every single day. You've got to get your pulse on how they're doing. This, you can, yes, put all of the things, all the safety things you can come up with on devices, put rules, restrictions, boundaries around that, but then sit with your actual children and see how they're really doing. And if you notice subtle changes, do not ignore that. Don't think this is normal for them as they're going through adolescence. Stay connected to your kids. You are the best line of defense that they have. Vulnerabilities that create fertile ground. We know these vulnerabilities. Anytime there is a disrupted family unit, there's any sort of substance abuse. We have the foster care system that always brings about vulnerabilities. Anything that is a vulnerability is leaving kids with exposure. They're basically advertising themselves with vulnerabilities to those that are preying on them. Okay, let's, we've got just a couple minutes. So this is what I feel like, because I like solutions. I don't really want to just expose the problem and not go after solutions. So the first thing that I feel is really important, and again, if you have not been to one of Ty's trainings, please go, because his shift in the cultural narrative conversation is so powerful. But we have got to quit normalizing this. We have got to quit saying that it's okay and that porn doesn't hurt anyone. We've got to quit acting like it's separate from what's happening with exploitation. I cannot for the life of me get my papers to move out of the way. The second thing is that we've got to protect our kids and our family units. We have to. There are policy and legal reforms that have to happen. Okay, I believe this is one of the biggest problems, that we're still protecting big porn.
Yes.
We are, because of what it does for our economy, and it's lining people's pockets. And so we're not really addressing, we're not holding them accountable. Then when I look at churches and community leaders, we have got to position our churches as safe havens. The church has got to be the place that people are coming to that have been exploited, that have been the exploiters, that are caught in this trap of pornography, that have a child that's been through this. We have got to be the safe haven. So if you are in a church, your church should be here at these meetings, because the church can surround the whole family. It's the only entity that can do that. So get your church involved if it's not. And then lastly, if you watch porn, you're part of the demand. I don't know how else to tell you that. I don't like that that's the case, because you were probably lured into it yourself as an innocent person, but it's still the truth. We are creating the demand. Every time we click on images, we are part of the problem. And so we've got to figure that out in our own lives. We've got to figure that out. When I began, I shared one of the hardest things that I've ever lived through, which is my own father's story. His choices began with pornography as a young kid in an abusive home who was neglected. That's how he began this journey. Porn is what he went to for comfort. And look at where it took him. He's now alone in prison. That's how it ended for him. I don't share this to shame him. I want the best for my dad eternally. I hope that he finds the Lord and that he will not spend eternity in hell. That's just what I hope, because he's my dad. But I know that in a room like this, or even those that are online, you may be struggling with this right now. It may be actively a part of the battle that you're dealing with every single day. So this to me is about just getting the perspective that we need on how this is impacting us personally, our families, and then our society as a whole. I believe that if pornography can shape a culture toward exploitation, then together, when we're honest about this and we have boldness, we can shape a culture towards freedom. We can swing the pendulum, but we have to be honest. We have to tell the truth about the issue. And I think that silence is what has protected this for so long, because we're battling it in silence and in shame. But courage is what dismantles this. When we're bold enough to tell the truth and expose what's destroying us as a society, that's how we can start to overcome it. So I'm just grateful that you're in this room today, Thank you for being in this difficult subject with me. And let's not let the conversation stop here. Let this be the start of it. And let's keep having this important conversation. Thank you. Wow.
Glenna, can we make sure that this slide is up for those online so that they have access to the resources as well? If anybody needs this QR code, feel free to take a picture of it. And for those of you that don't know, Google Lens, if you take a picture of a QR code, Google Lens will read that for you from your pictures. Thank you, Carrie. That was an amazing presentation. We didn't have time for questions, but if anybody has questions, feel free to email me. I will get you in contact with her. Please feel free to grab agendas on the way out if you want to take the QR code with you. Thank you for being here today, and we will see you all next month.